Hi there. Ms. Pender and Ms. Cho have asked me to talk about space because that's kind of one of my passions. And one thing I was asked about was gravity. And I'll bet the adults you know have told you that there's no gravity in space. And I'll tell you a secret. They are wrong. There's actually tons of gravity in space. Gravity is all over the place. All gravity is everything is pulling on every other thing. So this basketball has gravity, I have gravity, it's pulling on me and I'm pulling on it. But it's also pulling on everything. It's pulling on you right now, no matter where you are. It's pulling on the stars in the Milky Way. Bigger things pull harder than smaller things, and being far away means it gets weaker and weaker, but it's always there. So it's kind of nice to think that even if you are far away from someone that you really like, you're always connected by gravity. I like to think about it. But, so in space there's gravity, and you're probably thinking, Mr. Hackett, how come I've seen astronauts floating in space? If there's gravity, wouldn't they be on the ground? And I'll tell you a secret, actually, this picture is not in space. These astronauts are on a plane. They're not without any gravity, they are falling. So in space, all we're doing is falling all the time. If you got into a rocket, and actually you can do this at home, so you need Alka-Seltzer, which is a kind of headache medicine, and a film canister, ask your grandparents, and some water. Now, Alka-Seltzer tablet just fizzes a bit when it's in water. So the kind of canister where the lid snaps on the inside is best. So I'm going to put this in. So imagine we're in a rocket and we're going to just fly straight up from the Earth, and we're not going to do anything else, just straight up, even as far away as the moon is. I'm going to put this in, let's see what happens. Put the lid down, and I'm going to stand back a little bit, so Ms. Pender. And there it goes. That went further than I thought it would, and I think the ceiling's okay. But it came straight back down again. It didn't go into orbit or start flying around. So same thing would happen. We took off, we'd go straight up, we'd stop, and we'd fall right back down again. So when they go into space, what they do is they go sideways. I have a Lego rocket here I want to show you. It's big. It's really big. This is called a Saturn V, and that's the rocket they took to the moon. And just so you can see, Miss Pender can come in close. Here are a couple of tiny little Lego astronauts. So you can see next to the rocket just how big a person is. That is huge. So when these take off, they are pointing straight up because air slows us down. It's great for breathing, but it's not great for rockets. So they want to get out of the air as soon as possible. So when they take off, they go straight up in the air. And when this bottom bit with the huge engines is out of fuel, it falls off and smashes into the ocean, and they never see it again. This bit has smaller engines because there's less air. So it goes further up, and now it's starting to tilt over. It's going more and more sideways as it goes up. And when it's almost in space, this bit runs out of fuel. I should say, actually, this top bit has actually broken off as well. This bit is in case everything explodes, they can get all the people out. There are 3 people in this top little bit. But the bit comes off, and you will see underneath it, if this wasn't made out of Lego, all 3 people are in that little tiny bit there. So this will go until it's almost in space, and by now it's pointing about like this, and it will pop off, there we go, and fall back down to Earth. And just this tiny engine is enough, and this will keep going until it is all the way up into space, and now it's going sideways. And the idea here is, kind of pretend this is the Earth, it's going around the Earth, and it's falling past the Earth. If it stopped, it would just drop straight down, but it's going, and it's falling past the Earth, and the Earth isn't there anymore, so it just keeps falling all the way around. So that's why inside, they're just falling in space. So it's like they've got no gravity in there, but really they're just being pulled, they're being pulled down, but they're also going around at the same time. Now, this is cool because it kept going even further. This pushed them towards the moon, and partway along it split open. I always make a mess of this, but let's see. Okay, there we go. So inside, there it is the lander. So they turned around and attached like this, and they actually went the rest of the way to the moon backwards like this until they got to the moon, and then this engine slowed them down, and now they're just going around the moon, same thing. My basketball, just sort of following around the moon, making sure everything is working okay. Two guys got out from inside here and climbed into the lander, and they detached that, and this came down, it would slow down so that it would fall down to the moon instead of past the moon. This guy stayed up in orbit because they needed someone up there. They landed this on the moon. I'll leave that there so they could get out and explore and jump around. The moon is a lot smaller than the Earth, so it has less gravity, and the Earth is far away at that point. So the Earth's gravity, it's pulling on them, but not very much. And the moon's gravity isn't pulling on them very much. So they can jump really high and they can lift very heavy things very easily. So they played around for a bit, and when they were done, this top bit actually blasted off. They left the bottom bit behind. There was just a tiny little engine left on this. It went back up and attached so they could get out and bring the rocks and things that they'd collected into their ship. And then they left this behind. It stayed around the moon until it finally fell down and crashed into it. And they flew this back to Earth. So all of this rocket just to get this back to Earth, and even then, they left behind the actual engine part, and all three of them, just in this tiny little compartment called command module, they came back down to Earth in parachutes and landed in the ocean. So all of this rocket just to get three guys in this tiny little thing all the way to the moon and back. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. Gravity and how people get into space and go to the moon. Thank you very much for having me.